Get ready for a no BS approach to health and fitness. This is NBS Fitness Radio.
All right, welcome back to NBS Fitness Radio. I'm here with Charity and Nancy of Benchmark Wealth Management, which is a wealth management firm here in Memphis. And we're here to talk about all things building a life of your dreams, how to manage money to accomplish that, but also just kind of like the general mindset around how to view money, how to view investment, how that ties into our overall health and fitness of our body. So welcome to the podcast, ladies.
Thank you, Dave.
Awesome. I'd like to kick it off with what are some views of money that you have seen from people coming into your office, and what are the pros and cons of each of those kind of views of money? I'll let Nancy start it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's really fun. Sometimes we'll ask clients what their first memory of money is. It's kind of
Okay.
interesting to flash back to that. And I think so much of, we all have inheritance, and it's not financial.
Mm,
It's what your parents taught you or whoever raised you, you're going to copy for the most
yeah.
part. And I joke that I was financially bipolar because dad was basically all flash and mom was all cash. So, but you know, as a kid, you see that, and you see what how it affects everything. Someone has wisely said, more is caught than taught, and I think that's true. So, I think as far as perceptions, I think a lot of times people come in and think that being wealthy, being rich, is really what they want, but I think it's pretty clear in the Bible that God wants us to work for the money and earn the money.
Yeah.
That people that come into millions of dollars, say from a lottery or something like that, many of those people murder their wife or commit suicide. It can be a really dangerous tool if it's not well taken care of.
Yeah. I was talking to a friend the other day after a devotion, and just made the statement that wealth and money can be an incredible resource, but it is also probably the greatest temptation for sin.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
I think that's true. Well, and you know, I mean, we don't have to do Sunday school, but if you look at how many times love is named in the Bible versus how many times money is, money wins hands down. So I think God's trying to say, you know, you need to pay attention to this and take control of it. Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Charity? What are some of the different views you've seen in talking to clients?
We've seen the full gamut. One thing that seems to be a through line of it all is how emotional money issues are for people. There are a wealth of emotions that come along with, regardless of their status, you know, anything from shame to pride. We've seen a lot of that. We see the division that can cause in marriages. We've seen also the beauty of those things as well. People who are able to give stock donations or from their retirement accounts. That's been a fun thing to be a part of.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably two more emotions we see all the time are just fear.
Yeah.
But the opposite of that is just total peace.
Yeah.
I've handled things so well, I'm just not worried. There are things I might be concerned about, but money's not it.
It seems like it's it creates a potential for a large spectrum.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
it may be rare that you find people in the middle. They may be kind of to the
Right.
extremes of one way or the other all the time. How do you like then guide people? As people come in, because obviously money is an emotional subject, and people are coming in with a lot of preconceived notions and all that. Talk to me a little bit about how you have a conversation with them to get to know that, but then also how you kind of direct them or guide them.
Yeah, I think ultimately what we joke around the office that what we do is get paid to ask questions. That one of the things that I think is most important about what we do is people can't talk about their money with just anybody. In fact, they don't. And so to have a safe place to really share what they're thinking and how they're feeling. So I feel like our our number one job is to ask enough questions to find out what it is, why are people coming in? What are they looking for? How can we help? And then, give them advice as they want it. We've made the mistake for a number of years of just starting in on advice.
Yeah.
And that's, it can't be what I want for you. It needs to be what you want for you, or you're not going to be motivated to do it. I mean, same thing in your practice. So I think that's the biggest part of what we do. And then, asking the right questions.
What are some of those questions?
You want to go?
Well, you mentioned one of them already, which was what's your first memory of money?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That impacts so much that you don't even realize it. And many have to pause for a good bit to think about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, tell us why you're here.
Mm-hmm.
And then just shut up
Mm-hmm.
and let people talk. And, they'll lead you. And then every couple that comes in, there's a money talker and a money quiet, if you will. And to really tag into the money quiet and it's not gender, him or her to speak. And then it's fun when the couples have an aha moment, like, I've never heard you say that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's part of our job too, is to help couples communicate, families communicate better. But also, what keeps you up at night?
Yeah.
When's the last time you woke up at 3 a.m. worried about money? What was it? And, with some people, it's debt, it's student loans and that kind of stuff. But there are just as many people of, mom just died and left me more money than I ever thought I'd see. And I feel it's almost like blood money. I feel a personal responsibility. I have to manage this as unto her, if you will, or a big divorce settlement, or just surprise money. I wasn't expecting this. So there's those kinds of emotions on both sides. Or people that, hey, I have $100,000 in my checking account. I don't know what to do with it, kind of thing.
Yeah. I'd like to hear kind of y'all's first memories of money, and then like how maybe your views of it have changed or shifted a little bit now that you do this on this side of the table, as now the professional is guiding people.
Sure. And I don't know that I've heard yours before.
Yeah, I think mine revolved more around the scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
And that's been something that has made me both more frugal, but also a little rebellious, wanting to go to the other side of that.
Yeah. I just remember from age 5 on, mom would play tennis while I went to the pool. And then on the way home, we would stop at a little grocery store and she would cash a check for $85. And that's what she spent all week. She paid cash for everything.
Oh, wow.
And that was a long time ago. It wouldn't last very long now.
Did she take this like salary check, like from work, or was she just cashing another?
Oh, she was a teacher. Dad was in real estate. So she was just getting cash for the week.
Yeah.
But I think that made I think she was Dave Ramsey long before Dave was. But that was, she was born in Iowa and good Midwestern stock, and that's just how they did things. You didn't borrow money. And I think, that's why we did as well as we did, because neither one of them made a king's ransom by any stretch, but she was determined we would live on less than we make, and the best way to do that is to pay cash. So that was but it's interesting talking about rebellion, because I think in college and even after I was a financial advisor, I think I got away from that, because stuff is shiny and you want stuff, and there are people that you want to impress, and all that stuff. But ultimately I got back to cash, and it's made all the difference for sure.
But how much education was there growing up for you guys? Because I think for myself, my parents didn't make a little bit of financial education, but not really. I don't think
What was your first memory?
I was trying to think about that. Nothing comes like directly to mind. I remember like having my I actually still have it. My parents got me I'll tell you 2 memories in a second now.
Okay.
They're coming back to me. So one was like a big giant Coke bottle that you could fill up with coins.
Sure. Yeah.
And I remember like I would fill it up, pour it out, count them out. Like, I got
Yeah.
$200 in quarters,
Yeah.
And then I finally filled it up one time. I finally filled it up at like when I was 16. I used it to buy speakers for my car.
Right.
And I think that's like where, you know, one of the things that I try to talk to younger folks about is um like what would that be worth in
Mm.
40 years at
Mm-hmm.
8% interest?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not $1,000, it's like $88,000.
Right.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
so
Exactly.
that was like the most expensive set of speakers I ever bought.
Sure.
And I remember another memory, I remember being in personal finance class in high
Yeah.
school,
Mm-hmm.
and an advisor came in and he was
Mm-hmm.
asking us, like, if you had $1 and you put it in for this amount of time at this interest rate, how much would it be? And then you would guess, and he'd have this dollar and he'd drop it, and they were taped together. So
Oh,
he'd have
cool.
like,
Oh, wow.
and I remember I guessed correctly one time and
Oh,
got like
neat.
20 bucks.
Yeah.
And I was
Nice.
like, okay, that's how compound interest works.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the final one was, I remember in college in another personal finance class, um, like having to do a budget,
Mm-hmm.
working with my mom and be like, "That's how much that costs." And
Yeah.
she was like sitting there like, "Aha! See, now you
Right.
get it." So there's a couple memories that stick out, but yeah, my parents never like sat me down and I don't talk to me about how to budget or
Yeah.
investments or what even some of the terminology meant.
Mm-hmm.
I would maybe hear it and take it to them and be like, "Hey, what's this?" And they would talk to me about it that way. But most of it was outside in school or just having to kind of
Right.
learn it myself.
Yeah,
So
yeah, exactly. And then sometimes be influenced by your friends. And I remember, well, I'm wondering if when you filled up the Coke bottle, that didn't lead to your weightlifting career too, because that sucker had to be heavy.
I remember like had to like carry this like 50-pound thing of coins into the bank.
I love it.
And
I
they were
love
like,
it. Yeah.
"Oh crap,"
But it's interesting you say that because I loved sorting coins.
Yeah,
We did it as a family thing. It was really fun. But anyway, I think one of the things that happened, I was 13 and I'd saved $1,000, and Mom said, "Well, they have these two things at the bank. One's a CD and one's a mutual fund. Do you want to do either?" And I didn't.
Mm.
And same $88,000 mistake.
Yeah.
I'm sure that would be worth $500,000 now if I'd bought a mutual fund. But anyway, and sometimes it's just ignorance or inexperience. You
Right.
just don't know.
Yeah, for 1,000%. It's like I didn't have the concept or wasn't mature enough to like understand it.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
And I wonder how much of that. I mean, how much of that do you guys see as more of an age thing? I would imagine some of it is age related.
Some of it is, but I think you can change, but I think an awful lot of people are either born a spender or born a
Yeah.
saver.
Yeah.
And in couples, when there's a saver and a spender, that's a good balance.
Yeah.
When they're two savers, they're our favorite clients, needless to say. And if you got two spenders, you could have some trouble.
Yeah, no doubt.
Because somebody's got to, all of this, it's not unlike what you do. All of this is so simple,
Yeah.
but it's just not easy.
Yeah.
There was a magazine article, this is 30 years ago, but it talked about changing your life $100 at a time, that you start putting away 25, 50, 100, 1,000 a month, and then every year increase that regardless of whatever the bucket is. And, it just, you don't miss it
Yeah.
because it's just a discipline.
Right.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference.
I heard an awesome quote. I've been quoting a lot. It's motivation is not a factor of will. It's a factor of skill. It's a discipline of like, hey, well, right now I'm not necessarily motivated to put $100 because I'd
Right.
love to go spend that money. It's I enact the discipline of doing it, and then that leads to the motivation to continue to do it. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, talk to me a little bit about how then because how you tie in kind of the aspect of dream management and building a life that you look back and are satisfied with, and how that all wraps into the money conversation.
Sure. Well, I think it's significant that, we've all heard Dr. King's speech, and he said, "I have a dream, have a dream."
Yeah.
Okay. And I think all of us had dreams that we've let go, or, oh, we got married, it's personal responsibility, and now I have a business or a company and kids and all that stuff. And you forget about those things that you really imagined you could do when you were a kid.
Yeah.
And so one of our desires is to bring that back for people. Our challenge is to write down 100 dreams. And it's been real fun to see that. We've taken almost everybody through that
Yeah.
process in our office, and the results have been very impactful.
That's awesome.
Yeah, very fun.
I'd love to hear what
Yeah.
y'all's dreams were.
So many dreams, but what we learned was dreaming is like a muscle.
Yeah.
It requires multiple reps and practice, and then all of a sudden it's kind of easy.
Yeah.
One dream comes after another.
Yeah.
My first dreams started with, where do I want to go? Travel is my love language, so
Okay.
Paris, Ireland,
Yeah.
you name it. That's what I want to do and where I want to go.
Yeah.
But they've gone deeper
Yeah.
into family dreams.
Yeah.
What do I want for my husband? What do I want for my kids?
Yeah.
What do I want for the people around me? How do I want to influence the world?
Yeah.
Those deeper questions. So there are also the fun things of, I want a beautiful backyard,
Yeah.
to the deeper,
Yeah.
solid dreams that are lifelong.
So how do you introduce that question to clients?
Well, I think, again, in asking really good questions, ultimately it's what would you love and what do you want?
Yeah.
Two of the hardest questions in the universe to answer, but it's fun to think about it, and it's sort of an if then. If you do this, then you can take the trip to Switzerland
Yeah.
and, and hike Mont Blanc, which is what she's doing soon. Oh gosh, you guys could geek out about
Oh,
hiking.
yeah.
Anyway, before we get into that, let me just go back to the question. But I think it's been very significant for our clients, and for our team, frankly.
Yeah.
There are people on our team that have gotten braces and gotten them off.
Okay, yeah,
gotten
yeah.
married, had
Yeah.
babies, finally. People that have bought houses, paid houses off, paid cash for college. So it's, I don't think every dream is tied in with money, but an awful lot of them are.
Yeah.
And so to be able to say, all right, I'm going to get my finances in order so that I can do all these things.
Yeah. Do you find that's easy, difficult, or maybe split between people's ability to have those dreams?
I think if their mind is open
Yeah.
to the concept,
Yeah.
they can get there.
Yeah.
And I think we do a great job of creating that safe space for people to explore
Yeah.
what that might look like.
And I think the safe space is really important, because if I share a dream that I have with you and you're like, well, that's stupid,
Yeah.
and so I think you have to be really careful
Yeah.
about who you show your cards to. I think that's really important, because in our, there are a couple folks that we've introduced this to, and they haven't been negative about it, but they're like, no, I'm not doing it. And I think they have dreams, but they don't want to really explore that part of them.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I was going to say because they're guys, but that's not true. That's not true. We've had plenty of guys that have been all over it. Again, I think it's where they are in life,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's just a seasonal thing. It's like this. It's not no. It's just not now,
Yeah.
because of the other things that are going on, and it requires some introspection
Yeah.
and some really reviewing your life and what you want it to be and what it is now. That kind of thing. So I think what would you add to that?
Yeah, I would almost say fear too.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you're a little scared of what might be there, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
What if it doesn't match up with what you are doing?
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. That, when you said it's a muscle, what I see in discussions about bigger picture things with people is that it is just really easy to just kind of fall into the flow.
Yeah.
Like it's just kind of really easy to just kind of do what everyone else does and not have to think about it.
Right.
For the direction of your life, the use of your money, how you steward your body, or even just like the discussions that are had. And I would say that a lot of the common culture is not to sit there and talk about big things,
Right.
or to necessarily think of money as a resource gift to be stewarded. It's more it was interesting that if you read in the Bible, the improper use of money is always two things: pleasure and status.
Yeah.
I was like, that hasn't changed much in the
No,
last
you're right,
2,000
it does
years.
not. No, it does not.
And so like, how can I increase my current day pleasure, and how can I like increase my current day status?
Yeah.
And I think it's just really easy to kind of fall into that
Right.
line.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about fear. I had a conversation with the lady yesterday, 2 days ago. She was 69. All of her health metrics were really bad.
Mm-hmm.
Average lifespan's only 78.
Wow.
So if you're 69 with bad health metrics and the
Mhm.
average is 78,
Mm-hmm.
it's not inappropriate to consider that you may only have about 5 more years
Mm-hmm.
unless you do something different.
Yeah.
Most of the conversation was around justifying why she couldn't do anything
Mm-hmm.
or why. I mean, one of the comments she said was, "Well, this is a generational thing because her daughter does exercise on a regular basis," and she's like, "Well, my generation, we believe you should sacrifice for your family, and that was just what you had to do."
Mm-hmm.
Those are kind of the conversations that I was talking with my staff about afterwards. I said, it's really hard to look yourself in the mirror and go, like, I kind of screwed up there.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And not just over like a period of
Mm.
like a second ago, but like, I mean, I kind of screwed up the last 4 years.
Yeah.
And so I can see where that's a hard thing to take on emotionally
Mm-hmm.
and why it'd be fearful to kind of look that in the face and be like, crap, like
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was just getting pulled along by the cultural stream and wasn't willing to like have the introspection and like turn that ship around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and the beauty is if like you can get through that discomfort on the backside of it, like for her it was potential like extended
Yeah.
life.
Mhm. Yeah.
Right? Like
Yeah.
hey, if you could overcome that, you're
Yeah.
probably gonna live longer and happier the
Mm-hmm.
last couple of years, but it's gonna cause you to have to face that. So I can see where fear the fear is like I'd have to face myself and
Mm-hmm.
the decisions I've made.
Mm-hmm.
But like that is what growth essentially is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little
Right.
discomfort now for some comfort later.
For sure.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I think if you have like a growth mindset, that's essentially what that is constantly
Mhm.
doing. It's like
Absolutely.
constant introspection, like "Ah, I could have done that better, or
Yeah.
Mhm.
I need to be doing this better. Like
Mhm.
how can I grow? So you build that muscle so
Mhm.
that while you recognize that yeah, I am going to have to face some negative thoughts or actions or whatever within myself. But like recognizing that it says, and then I'll learn from that, grow,
Mm-hmm.
become better down the road.
Well, and I know, I mean, the three of us are all very committed to personal growth. And I don't see the three of us ever stopping.
Yeah.
And I think you have to look in the mirror and say, okay, is what I'm doing now getting me closer to
Mm-hmm.
who I want to be and where I want to be or farther away from? And then, there have to be small edits. I just
Yeah.
don't think you can be drastic, and it has to be sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
So, you're not going to get somebody come to the gym for 7 days a week and keep up. They won't do it. They won't do it. And same, people that come to us and they're like, okay, well, I'm just never going to eat out again.
Like,
Sustainable.
yeah, good luck.
Yeah, exactly. Probably not going to happen.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Yeah, the analogy I use is I'll say, okay, you got to plant your flag and then plant a new flag. So essentially, it's if you set a goal of training 4 days a week
Hmm.
and you only trained one, that would feel like a loss. You're
Mhm.
currently training 0. You
Mhm.
set a goal of 4.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
train 1. You failed. If you set a goal of 1 and did it,
Yeah.
that
Boom.
would feel like success.
Right.
Yeah.
Either way, it's still the same amount. Either way, it's still improvement.
Mhm.
It's just your mindset behind like how you're establishing
Yeah.
those goals, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So going back to I'll just never eat out again. Well, it's like that's not sustainable because as
Mhm.
soon as you eat out, it's gonna feel like failure, and you're
Mhm.
gonna
Right.
go, screw it,
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
for today.
Yeah.
Versus
Yeah.
you said like I currently eat out 5 days a week.
Mhm.
I'm gonna go down to 3 days a week.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna take the money I would have spent on those other 2, and I'll go ahead and like put it in my savings or whatever
Yeah.
it is as an act of, hey, this is money I was spending here, now it's going here, right?
Right.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
Yeah, occasionally we'll have somebody come to us and say, I've just paid off my house, and so I want to start putting $5,000 a month into a mutual fund. Y'all
yeah.
take it. Let's go. And we almost always say, let's do 2,500. Let's do 2,500 for 3 months,
Yeah.
because if you just freed up $5,000 a month, you ought to take some of that and have some fun.
Yeah.
Take 250, take 500, and have some fun, and the rest of it put away. but I think one of the things that people do when they come to us is they say, we want to invest some money.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
What's the purpose?
Right.
And sometimes they just simply don't know. I just want to make a better return is a nice thought,
Yeah.
but there's got to be some purpose behind it. It's for college, it's for a car, it's for retirement, etc.
You read Die with Zero.
Yeah.
Have you read
No,
Die
I've
with
not.
Zero? Okay. I would love to hear kind of how that changed your perspective
Yeah.
on things.
Well, I mean, the concept in the book is that, we're all accumulating a lot of wealth and then we're going to die and leave it to somebody else. And the point in the book is maybe you should have more experiences and share that with family and friends as opposed to just leaving somebody $5 million when you die. And the other thing that really got to me was when people normally inherit money from their families or heirs, it's right around 62, 65. But when they need it, it's
Right.
32, 35.
Right.
And how it affected me personally is when my niece got ready to buy a house that they would be challenged to afford. I helped with the down payment substantially because I thought I don't want to live another 30 years and then they get the money. Give them the money now.
Right.
So I think that really changed my perspective. And I don't agree with everything in the book, but I've given that book to many people. And I think from that we've come up with a phrase that we're calling impactful wealth.
Yeah.
That it cannot be about retirement. It has to be about financial independence. So we're all getting to a point where we may still work, but we're not working because we have to. We're working because we want to. And I want to make sure that my money is having an impact on the causes that I care most about. You've got a 17-year-old cat. I love animals, okay? And I want to make sure strays are adopted and rescued and all that kind of stuff. So money goes to that, as well as the causes that are of concern to me. But I think what I'm seeing a lot of our clients do is sometimes you don't need a tax deduction.
Yeah.
You just want to give it and give it in secret because it's fun. It really impacts people.
And that would be worse. That would be sacrificial giving.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, but it goes back to, I don't care if anybody knows about this. Kind of back to your point of, well, people want status.
Yeah.
It's like, well, do it in secret.
Right.
Yeah,
I think when I read it, the things that stood out the most to me was one, the age of it, that the timing of giving is typically more impactful than the amount of giving.
Yeah.
Hence, like, would it be better to give your 65-year-old, son or daughter $2 million, or to give your 35-year-old son or daughter $500,000 or $250,000 to help them with the down payment of a house, or to help them, like, hey, all your kids college is now taken care of, right? So just like, oh wow, like that's a weight off my shoulders. Whereas like 62, you're like, well, cool, but like I'm already set for retirement or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
And also like the idea that there's periods of your life which you don't get to do things, you don't get back, and you can't do them anymore. So in other words, like the idea that, I mean, he used wakeboarding as an example, in the sense that, hey, cool, you've got a ton of savings at 75, but like you can't use it to do a whole lot of stuff. Like you're not going wakeboarding, you're just using it to drink wine and eat food. You know what I mean?
Right.
Whereas like you would have been better off saying, like, maybe I don't need to put as much into savings, but hey, like my kids are at the perfect age. I'm 40. I can still wakeboard, and like we're gonna spend summers wakeboarding and build these memories.
Right.
And I'll just have less total at retirement.
Yeah.
So I was like, I like that idea really struck me as kind of saying things as like, over the next 5 years, what's the one thing I'll never be able to do again during this time period? Or the next 10 years, what's what do I never be able to do again after this? And so for me, it's more kid related and family related.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And so it's kind of the idea is like, I don't look at a retirement and go, yes, there will be a point in which I don't work. I'm like, that does not seem to be my.
Yeah, it's not attractive. I mean, it is for some people, but it's not for us. Yeah.
It's I'll probably work at some capacity, purposeful capacity throughout the rest of my life. So with that kind of mindset, it's like, well, my my earning time extends forever. I don't
Yeah.
have a compressed window where I have to save, but I do have a compressed window for having kids under 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
true,
it's like,
yeah.
what are the things that we can only do now?
Yeah.
And I'll do those. So
Yeah.
that was like a big takeaway for me in that book.
Yeah, and I think the other thing, going back to his experiences, is, your personal enjoyment. I mean, you have worked exceedingly hard to accumulate all this money, and you can give it to others, you can leave it to others, and you can experience it yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, Charity and her husband are going hiking in the Alps, and I fly first class. That's really important to me. We have a client who takes both sets of sons' families to Florida
Yeah.
for 10 days every year, and they pay for it.
Yeah.
Well, then they get to see the grandkids enjoy it.
Yeah.
And it's a win-win-win, so I think there's all kinds of stuff like that to consider
Yeah,
too.
for sure. I love it. How would you kind of like tie in the stewardship of money and educate someone or guide someone with regards to like maintaining their physical health and fitness as well, as far as like investing in that? Because I mean, I'll just give you some insight into like our realm. There's only three reasons people either don't exercise or stop exercising. It's time, money, pain. Too busy, don't have the time. Don't quite understand the value of it or the investment potential of it. So it's like it's too expensive, or like I have some type of pain, and that may be physical pain. My back hurts. It might be social pain or an aversion to social pain. If I go to the gym, I'm going to embarrass myself.
Sure.
I'm
Yeah.
going to people that are fit, and I'm not, and I don't want that. And so, it is usually a lack of clarity on like why. Hey, like, what's the value of this? A lot of people see it as a lifestyle choice. Oh, you're into health and fitness. I'm into barbecue. It's like, well, I don't know. That's
Yeah, it's a little
quite the
different.
way that works.
Right.
They have a lack of understanding of when. It's kind of like, well, when my life gets X, Y, Z, that's when I'll be able to start taking care of myself. And it's like, well, up until this point, you've been developing habits and have a history that's just sending you into one direction. Life's never going to be this like perfect situation. And if it was, what happens when it goes back to normal life?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They have a lack of clarity on maybe what they don't kind of know what to do, or they're like, they say like, I'm active. It's like, well, there's a difference between being active and like maintaining your health and fitness, and those look different. But they have a lack of clarity on who should they trust. Maybe like they may see their doctor as the person who's going to make sure that they are healthy and fit through pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
Again, not an accurate view. So, so those are like kind of what we typically kind of have to help guide people through. How would you guys guide someone with regards to an appropriate way of budgeting or thinking through using my resource of money for my health and fitness?
I think it's individual, it's customized. If you're just starting out saving for anything, you have to do the things that don't cost money. Body weight doesn't cost money. Walking doesn't cost money. And as your earning potential increases, you can add things that do cost money, things that are, I would think, getting your own exercise equipment, because then it's not a recurring thing. It's a one-time purchase, and you're going to be using that repeatedly. And then you could join a gym. There's just, it builds upon each thing. And I think there's so much more to it. I think that I had the gift, I couldn't say it at the time, but I had the gift of having breast cancer at age 36. And I was at the peak of my health and fitness.
Yes.
I was a certified group fitness instructor. So I say it's a gift because it was an awareness that your health could be taken at any minute, regardless of your best efforts.
Yeah.
And so that's when stewardship was introduced to me. That's when it's like, well, you got one body, you got one chance to make this work for you. What do you want it to look like?
Yes.
And it shifted. And not everyone is going to face those things, I hope. But you can still learn from it. You can learn from others' experiences of how to make it work for you.
Cool.
And I think, as evangelistic as you are about health, we are about wealth too. And I think initially when I got in the business, I wanted everybody to listen because I knew it would change their life. And now I'm like, no, I'm going to tell you the truth and I'm going to share it. And I hope you say yes, I really do.
Yeah.
I understand sometimes it's not no, it's not now, but this will change your life, your marriage, your family tree. But if you don't want it, then there are 50 people outside the office that do. So I think we've gotten into that mindset
Yeah.
too. But I think ultimately it's the testimony of the people that work under our roof and the life-changing experiences they've had because they've gotten their money in order. And we have 20 people in the company, 20 different situations. And yet if we'll all manage what we've been given. You have one opportunity. It's a little bit different than your body, but it's no different in the discipline and the focus and the sustainable little bit at a time kind of thing. So I don't know if that helps at all. But
Okay. What are like the biggest money mistakes you see people making?
not being sober to what they're doing, not refusing to look at their behavior. It's somebody else's fault. Refusing to take ownership, and thinking, oh, it's going to get better when I get a raise, when I win the lottery, when mom and dad give me money,
Yeah.
and it's and refusal to be independent and recognize it's your responsibility, not anybody else's.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of similarity to what you do as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Nothing changes until you do,
Right.
right? Yeah.
do you see it as like so many people? Is it a lack of maybe like awareness? So that where they like education in the sense that I don't know how to make a budget. I'm not educated on it. Is it that they and I think what you just said was is just I don't want to increase my awareness of it. Like I want to kind of like sweep it under the rug and not have to look at it.
Well, it's like I'm fat, so I don't want to go to the gym. I'm in debt, or I don't know how to do a budget, or I can't balance my checkbook, so I don't want to talk to a financial advisor. I get that.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know my story. I'm a financial advisor, and one day I can't make payroll because we've gone through the great recession, for me it was lack of awareness and assuming that this income level is always going to stay this income level. So when it drops by 40%, I am not prepared. And
Yeah.
a lot of people wouldn't be, but that's no excuse.
Right.
My responsibility. And it was a gift, different than cancer, but it was definitely a gift because I had to sober up quickly. And here I'm a financial advisor. I own the company.
Yeah.
I'm a CFP. Well, if it can happen to me, it can happen to anybody. And I really want to be transparent with that story because, it's like people, let's get it together.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's, well, we won't get too spiritual, but I think that there's somebody that's against us and they
Yeah.
would prefer that we didn't manage money well. And if several times a week we get asked, what's the best book I could read on finance? Proverbs, without question. You read a proverb a day, your money management's going to
Yeah.
change. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, like tactically, what did you do? Because I mean, it sounds like you were saying it was like, I had my budget,
Hmm. Yeah.
and then my my pay got cut by 40%.
Right.
So how did you kind of go through and go like do the hard thing of crossing out that and go like how did you say this is what must stay and this is what must go?
Sure, you're just the sweetest guy. I did not have a budget. Well, because I'm single, I'm making a ton of money. What am I
Yeah.
worried about? I didn't have a budget personally or at home.
Yeah.
And so I sincerely, I went back 6 months and I wrote out every single thing that I'd spent and I
Yeah.
averaged it out. And I started cashing a check and paying cash
Yeah.
for everything that I could pay cash for. I mean, obviously not utilities or
Yeah.
gas or that kind of thing, but you'd be amazed, if you've got $250 in an envelope for entertainment and it's the fourth week of the month and you're out of money, then you can't go. So I think
Yeah.
part of it was parenting myself.
Yeah.
You had to start saying no, because it was more important to me to get this fixed than it was to go eat out.
Yeah.
Because I was responsible for me. I'm giving everybody else advice. I'm responsible for the people in my company, and I almost didn't make payroll
Yeah.
come on. But I also think I started very small. I got very good counsel, and I little by little began to accumulate savings and wealth and pay off debt. And I didn't have consumer debt; it was all real estate debt.
Yeah.
And I actually was worth a lot of money on paper. I just didn't have anything liquid,
Yeah.
which is also insanity. Insanity. I mean, no one is ever going to die and say, "Oh, I'm so depressed or so upset. I have too much money in savings." You know, we met with somebody yesterday that literally has over $5 million in a savings account. He's got other assets, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
But, you know, I don't know that he wants that amount kept in there, but he wasn't upset about it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
he said, I think I can get a better return on this. And we agreed. But I think for me, and that's why I tell my story so much, is, you know, wherever you are, you can start over, and you need to,
Yeah.
because this is really important. Consequently, I'm now financially independent. I'm not here. Well, I'm here because I love you
Yeah.
and Charity. But I'm not here because I have to be.
Yeah.
And now it's fun. It's super fun.
How old were you in 2008?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I
I'm
would have
not
been.
trying to
No,
ask
no,
your
no.
age,
I
but
don't.
just so people have an understanding of.
Yeah, I was 40 something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's one of those, I think sometimes people are like, well, it's too late.
Mhm.
I've been doing it for so long.
Yeah.
Too long.
Mhm.
So, like, oh, I had to figure it out at 40.
Mhm.
You
Right.
know, something.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
Like your 69-year-old client.
Yeah.
It's never too late
never too late.
to get it right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Best state of pantry is 6 years ago, and the second best is today.
Today. That's right. Yeah. Well said. Well said. Absolutely.
I'd love to hear maybe just like some cool stories that you guys have of some clients. Obviously, don't you have to share their name or anything, but do you have any kind of like cool stories that come to mind?
There's one that comes to mind. He was an executive with FedEx, and she was a nurse. She stopped working when one of their grandchildren was born with a severe disability, so she could help the kids. He continued his career, and every time they've been clients for probably 30 years, but every time we met with them, we underprojected. We said we're going to use a 6% rate of return. We're going to use 4% inflation. And David, they have so much money now, you know, and it was kind of an under promise, over deliver. And they lived on less than they make. He married very well, in that she is, and I mean this with a compliment, she's a squirrel, and
Okay, yeah.
she puts the money away and she guards that budget. But, you know, I think they just got back from a month-long Viking cruise, something overseas. So now they're in a position to do all that. They're helping remodel the kids' bathrooms and, you know, that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
that's been a huge one, and just fun to see so many clients now financially independent.
Yeah.
Another one is the same guy that takes his 2 sets of families to Florida every year is just a massive giver. And to see how much they give to the charities and churches that they support, it's incredibly impactful. And it's really fun to help them do that strategically, to give appreciated stock and securities and RMDs and that sort of thing. Anybody come to mind for you?
Not a specific story. It's more of the little things I've just picked up along the way, from just invest something monthly, have it automatic, so
Yeah.
you don't have to think about it. It's
Yeah.
the things that I take from those meetings and apply to my own life. You're wanting to go on a vacation, save for it. You know, all the little things. The same family that takes their families on vacation, I want to do that.
Yeah.
It's seeing all these examples of people who have learned how to do it right, and I want to apply those same strategies to my life.
That's awesome.
Well, and another guy I was thinking about, he and his wife, she's a pharmacist, and he was in ministry, and they have 2 young boys, and he quit work to stay home with the boys. While he was there, he went back to nursing school and got his nursing degree. They decided at their age, 39, that they were going to pay their house off. They got no end of trouble from, you know, criticism from family or friends. Again, they shared the dream with people that were critical of them, and they were focused and they did it. And so now I think they're 43 and have no mortgage.
That's right. They paid it off from 39 to 44 or
Yeah,
43.
I mean, you know, well, pretty much. I mean, they were
They knocked it out in
throwing
4 years. Yeah.
serious money at it. And now, I mean, their 529s are fully funded, their Roths are fully funded, and, you know, and they're massive givers.
Yeah.
And that's an example of 2 savers that got married. And that's a great example of it. But just that it's possible to do some big things if you're willing to sacrifice and if your why is strong enough.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting that everybody should pay their house off, period,
Yeah.
because if this is your last house, then absolutely you ought to think about paying it off. But if you're going to move from here someplace else, then I'm not sure. I mean, every individual is different. I'm not giving any advice, but that was really, they were just so jazzed about it, so jazzed about it. Very fun.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean that's like such a huge. Again, going back to if you're understanding your why, if your priority is to die with the most in the bank,
Right.
then probably don't pay your house off, right?
Right. Yeah.
But there goes back to to understanding your why, doing some introspection, having a bigger dream, like doing the muscle the muscle exercises of what do I actually want is going to help you actually get to clarity on like what's the next step, because it might be like, you know what, I don't want this burden over my head anymore.
And that was a big motivator.
Hey, we got 6-year-old kids, like we're not going on crazy vacations here over the next 4 years, so like let's just pay this thing off so that when they're whatever, we don't have to worry about this, and we just live in a stress-free life. Again, if you go back, I mean, for me, if I said, well, okay, if you extend your working years an extra 10 years, then taking 4 years to pay your house off doesn't.
Right.
You're not really losing any return potential.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think they're a great example too. John Maxwell says you're the compilation of the 5 people you're closest to.
Yeah.
In every area. And the people that they hang out with have the same financial mentality they do. They're not, going out with people that have $40,000 on a credit card. It's not that those people are bad people. They're not, but that's not the direction that I'm going. And I think that's something we all need to look at, because if I really got upset and really needed to go shopping, I know who to call to go with me. And we don't spend that much time together anymore as a result, because I don't want to be influenced. Like, if you don't want to drink too much or eat too much or whatever, you know who to not be with.
Yeah. It's really hard to say no continuously to social pressure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know
Absolutely.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like a lot easier just to not put yourself in the situation where you have to say no.
Right.
Right.
Mhm.
Or
Yeah.
put yourself in the positive social pressure.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
Yeah. Well said.
Exactly. Do you have kind of maybe top 3 kind of pieces of advice, like tactical advice that people could implement for their financial well-being?
You got one that comes to mind?
The first thing I think of is awareness.
Okay. And how would they build that?
I think about what you're doing. What are you doing now? What do you want in 10 years? It goes back to that question. What do you want? What do you love? Allow that, work backwards from that to change whatever you need to change here to get there.
Yeah. And I think the awareness comes, we can't control the economy, the market, who's in office, any of that.
Yeah.
You can control what you're spending. You absolutely have to know what it is.
Yeah.
You just have to know. And it's no one's room to judge except for you, but you've got to know what you're spending so you know what you can edit.
Yeah.
I think the second thing would be make sure you have enough money in savings. To live without an emergency fund is just foolishness because trust me, an emergency is coming. It doesn't matter if you don't have any money or you have a ton of money, there's going to be an emergency. And I think 3, okay, I have 4. 3 would be if you're in with an employer that will give you a match on your 401k, don't walk away from that free money.
It's like a 3%
Free-
raise.
Thank you. Yes, free money. And then 4, get advice.
Yeah.
Now, my mother could have been a financial advisor. She would have been a great one. In fact, she was for me if I'd listened. But get a financial advisor, whether it's a relative or a professional, somebody that you're going to listen to and you respect and you would follow.
Yeah.
And because that's, we tell people all the time, we're never going to recommend anything to you that we haven't done ourselves and are not currently doing, because that's how you do it. You're working out at the same time you're suggesting workouts for others. And that, to me, that's just integrity.
Do you have a general guideline on how much should be in a savings account?
Well, I
Or
think
emergency fund account?
I think it's at least 3 months of expenses.
Okay.
And you have to know what you're spending. So if you're spending 5,000, it would be 15,000. If you're self-employed, probably 6 months. So in this illustration, it'd be 30,000. But then you get into what's your comfort level. And we had a widow come in the other day, and she had $100,000 in her emergency fund, and that's what made her comfortable.
Yeah.
And there's that sleep factor. And I think everybody has that number. What's that number for everybody? So that when it gets below that, you're like, I feel really anxious about this. So I think you need to pay attention to what you're thinking too.
Very cool. That's great. Someone said, well, why do I need a financial advisor? What would your response be?
I think for the accountability, for the expertise, for the wealth of knowledge, but I don't think you want to go. I think you need a CFP, a certified financial planner, and I think you need to ask questions like, how are you paid? And you need to ask them, what are you doing with your money?
Yeah.
Because if they have a Lamborghini in the parking lot, now maybe they can afford it, but I don't know that that's really the person that you're looking for.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're not looking to have status through Lamborghinis,
Yeah, exactly.
you may want a different financial advisor.
right.
So I think you have to pay attention to that. But I think sometimes people just assume that they just don't know how financial advisors are paid or how their financial advisor is paid, and it's pretty important.
Yeah, that's good. I always think through I always say, like, having a coach or an advisor or a mentor or anything like that, it's like taking a time machine.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of knowledge that comes through experience and education, and you absolutely could sit there and take all the tests and study yourself and listen to all the podcasts, and you could gain experience. But you're still not going to have as much experience of working just with yourself versus working with hundreds or thousands of clients.
Right. Yeah.
And so, like, working with a coach is essentially paying to have 20 years of experience today.
Yeah. Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And so, again, going back to the money is not a fixed resource. You can earn more, you can earn less, it can go up and down. But time is a relatively fixed resource. So it's like, I don't have 20 years.
Right.
So there's your reason for using a coach for anything in life, whether that be your financial health, your physical health, your spiritual health, working with someone who's been there, done that, and can kind of advise you and say, hey, it took me 20 years to get here. You can do it in two years. You just learn from my mistakes, or so that's kind of my reason for why you should use a coach, financial planner, whatever, whoever it may be. Is it's a heck of a lot faster than doing it on your own.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
cool. Any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
No, this has been great. But I think there are a lot of commonalities with health and wealth, to be sure. And I just think you have to, like Charity said, you've got to be aware. Be aware of what you're doing. Be aware of why you're doing it. And is this the person you want to be? And if it's not, let's make some changes.
Love it.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you all for so much for
Thank
coming
you.
on.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, it's been a treat.
NBS Fitness Radio out.
Thank you for listening to NBS Fitness Radio. If you enjoyed the podcast, be sure to share it with your friends, follow us on social media, and check out our website at www.nbsfitness.net. Hit the subscribe button and tune in next time for more NBS Fitness Radio.